Did the Boston Celtics have the easiest path ever to the NBA Finals? Well, here's the thing. We're actually asking the wrong question. The right question is it time to do something about it? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. I'm Trevor Lane. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. So here's the issue. A lot of people running around saying, did the Celtics have the easiest path to the finals ever? And they're using it as a way to diminish the Celtics' accomplishment of actually getting to the NBA Finals. But here's the problem. It's the word ever. We live in this world of the extremes. Who's the GOAT, the greatest of all time? Who's the greatest dunker of all time? Who's the best defensive player ever, right? We live in these extremes. We want to find out who the best is. When we talk about player fans, they focus in on supporting wholly one player or being completely against that player. We live in extremes. Look, even politically, you get pushed into you're either a far right extremist or a far left extremist, depending on what your point of view is. Truth is, most people live somewhere in the middle. And again, that's typically where you find the truth. So did the Boston Celtics have the easiest path ever to the NBA Finals? No. You want to look historically, there have been teams that have had easier paths in terms of their opponent's winning percentage to get to the NBA Finals. You look back in the 80s, which is almost the last time the East was actually better than the West. And the Lakers played some teams that were not very good on their way to the NBA Finals. However, you look at the path the Celtics took. You played the definition of mid. You got the Miami Heat, you got the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Indiana Pacers, and you got those teams without their best players. You got them without Jimmy Butler. You got them without Tyrese Halliburton, without Donovan Mitchell, without Jared Allen. You got these teams that are all together meh, and you got them without their top talents. Of course, it was an easy path to the NBA Finals. Are you kidding me? But does it matter? No, the banner, should the Celtics win it, will hang all the same. Injuries are part of the playoffs. That's not going to diminish a championship for what's been an admittedly really good Celtics team. But the bigger question is the East-West thing now becoming a problem? And frankly, it has been a problem for a long, long time. You look at the disadvantage of being in the Western Conference. Since the turn of the century, we're talking about you all the way back to 2000. And the East has had a better winning percentage than the West a whopping one time. Once it's happened. And I know most people would even be surprised that it happened once. The Western Conference has been the better conference for decades now. It is a massive disadvantage to the point where I can't wait to see the fight that's going to take place between the Memphis Grizzlies, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the New Orleans Pelicans. When the league expands, when Vegas and Seattle come in, those three teams are going to be fighting to get to be the team that gets to move into the Eastern Conference. It is such an advantage to be in the East that the NBA needs to step in and say enough of the conference divide. And for a few reasons. Not only do you have some Western Conference teams who feel slighted, you look even this season, the Houston Rockets were a 500 basketball team and didn't even make the play-in the West. You've got play-in teams in the East, don't even have to be 500. They can be a losing team and still make the play-in the Eastern Conference. But here's the bigger problem for the NBA and why the league really needs to address this. I know we get into this whole regional East-West thing, and we think that people are just going to support whatever is from your region of the country. You think 76ers fans are going to get behind the Celtics? No, probably not. You think Knicks fans are going to get behind them? No. Are Spurs fans going to get behind the Mavs? Well, maybe, I guess. Houston fans? Maybe, but probably not. I don't think the regional stuff matters as much as, well, maybe the NBA thought it was going to back in the day, that it would be this is the representative from the East and this is from the West. No, the bigger thing that matters now, because let's face it, the world is shrinking. That's why we see guys that are able to become top-tier superstars in small markets. The advantage of large markets is actually diminished over the years. You see guys, now that we've got social media, we've got the internet, we've got YouTube, we've got all of these things, now you've got players who can become superstars anywhere. The world is shrinking. We are more connected than ever before. So you can be a fan of the Knicks and live in Portland. You can be a fan of the Miami Heat and live in Oklahoma City. It doesn't necessarily matter where you are anymore. The regional rivalries don't exist quite to the same degree as they used to the point where having an East versus West conference makes a whole lot of sense. No, the most important thing for the NBA, it's the stars. It's making sure that your top stars are playing as long as possible. The NBA is a star-driven league, and you look at what happened in the playoffs this year. You had the Western Conference chewed up guys like LeBron James, like Steph Curry. How much money did the NBA miss out on because of that? A lot. When one conference is significantly stronger than another, what inherently means is that that conference is going to have more of the star players. The better players are going to be in that particular conference. In this case, it's the Western Conference. It's a clown car of superstars, just everybody slammed in to one conference, and it's only getting worse. And this is why the NBA needs to act. It's only getting worse. Victor Wembanyama, who is the next big star, good Lord, I don't know how teams are going to deal with him next year and beyond. He wound up in the Western Conference. Of course, all of these stars are in the West, but what that means is they cannibalize themselves, and you see less of these big names going deeper into the playoffs. Instead, you're getting guys like Tyrese Halliburton, who is great, but is he that big star that is going to bring in a lot of viewers? No. And then he even wound up getting hurt. And that's in your conference finals. Your Eastern Conference final had Tyrese Halliburton in there as the big star for the Pacers. So the problem is that you wind up with these teams kind of squeaking through. And in the case of the Pacers, no disrespect to them, but they were there because somebody had to be. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference right now, you've got stars again like LeBron, like Steph Curry, like some of the other teams that got bounced out early. Heck, even Nikola Jokic, who's a rising star. Anthony Edwards at least made it to the finals. He is a major star that's bursting onto the scene in the NBA. Fortunately, he made it to the conference finals, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a big-time player for you, he gets bounced out. You look at the Clippers guys, you look at Paul George, you look at Kawhi Leonard, they get bounced out. They're playing in a more difficult conference. It makes it more likely that those stars are going to go home earlier, and you want the best. Let's talk about the NBA Finals. You want the finals to be the best of the best. This is supposed to be your marquee event of the year. This is your Super Bowl. This is when you want everybody watching. All eyes on this. This is your best teams, the showcase of the immortals. Okay, that's WrestleMania, but still, the point stands. You've got your top tier teams that are there in the NBA Finals. Well, you know what? The Celtics are one of the best teams in the NBA. I think this year you wound up okay with Celtics versus Mavs. You've got Luka, you've got Kyrie, you've got Tatum, you've got Jaylen Brown. You've got two of your very best teams that made it there. But you know what? You're increasing the likelihood of happening when you have these conferences set up and you've got this imbalance. It's the likelihood that a team's going to get there that really shouldn't be there, and we're going to see the eyeballs decrease. They don't have that star talent. They don't have the best players, and you're not going to get nearly as many people watching the NBA Finals, which that is a big problem for the league. So moving forward, what the NBA needs to do is just ditch the conferences. Even out the schedule. You look at the West, you look at the East, think about how much better some of the West records would be if they weren't cannibalizing themselves, playing these really good teams, and they got to beat up on some of the weaker Eastern teams for a little bit. You look at some of the Eastern teams, some of the teams that actually look like, hey, they're not that bad, they're a little bit above 500. Yeah, but what if they're playing a bunch of Western Conference teams that have the better players? So it's time to eliminate the conferences, even out the schedules. And I know that's going to be a real challenge for the NBA trying to schedule all of that. The logistics of putting something like that together will not be easy. Maybe you have to lengthen the season by a week or so or something like that to give you a little bit more breathing room. But the most important thing is that you're going to wind up with the actual best of the best making it all the way to the finals. And more than that, you're going to wind up with more of the better teams making their way through the playoffs and thus increasing the eyeballs on those teams that have those stars. It's time to do away with the massive advantage that is held by playing in the NBA's Eastern Conference. Get rid of conferences, even out the playing field, and I think the NBA as a whole will reap the rewards. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.